again, I'm pausing because it is, I'm like, how to talk about this with the reckoning, right? With that happened. That's in the summer of 2020. It didn't occur to me that like that same nationwide conversation would have to happen also within my own house, within my family. Um, because you're dealing with multiple generations, right? You've got my mother, and then we've got like my two nieces now, with the youngest of which is 22. So, no one, we don't have, no one's a child anymore, but their their experience is very different. And it's led to some kind of uncomfortable conversations. And I have to keep explaining to my nieces, I'm like, you have to realize that your grandmother, my mom, was raising, because my dad was military. So there'd be times that he was stationed in Korea. My mom was like, we are not moving to Korea. We'll see you when you get back. But for a long time, she was a single white woman with four black kids in England in the 70s. There was a lot of ignorance, a lot of prejudice, a lot of racism in England
Mm.
during that time. So I have to keep reminding them, like, to say things that insinuate that your grandma is blind to certain things, or is, you've got to give context to where she's coming from. And so I think for me, being biracial, it does help me to provide some sort of context for things, because I do kind of live at the nexus of that. But
Mm. Hello and welcome to At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a multimedia platform where story by story, we explore the resiliency of the human spirit with people who are using their own personal journeys to leave a positive and transformative imprint on our world today. At the Podium holds a space for meaningful conversation, inspiration, and life. Today, I'm thrilled to share the podium with LeRoy McClain. LeRoy McClain is an award-winning British American stage and screen actor. He currently stars as Andre Rashad Wallace on HBO Max's hit show And Just Like That. As Shy Baldwin in Amazon Prime's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, he earned a 2020 SAG Award for Best Ensemble in a Comedy Series. Mr. McClain also stars as Cecil Franklin in the MGM feature film Respect, alongside Jennifer Hudson and Forest Whitaker. For the stage, he has performed extensively in venues across the globe, appearing on Broadway in The History Boys and Shakespeare's Cymbeline, and in many notable off-Broadway and international productions, including Plenty opposite Rachel Weisz, Othello opposite Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jessica Chastain, and The Good Negro opposite Anthony Mackie, directed by Liesl Tommy, all for the Public Theater. He is a graduate of the Yale School of Drama and the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain. LeRoy, welcome to At the Podium.
thank you for having me.
You got your MFA at Yale. You actually started the year I graduated, so we just missed each other by 3 months, 4 months.
I know, but I heard about you.
You did
I,
not. Come on.
I yes, I did, of course, because like, what do you, I don't know either, but like, I want to, he's, sadly, he's no longer here with us, but
Yeah.
delightful soul, Leslie Elliott, who,
Yeah.
was a third year when I was a first year. I spent many a night in his apartment eating pizza, which was weird. I would look at him eating pizza with astonishment, because for everybody, this guy was built like a Greek god. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just jacked, just veins, just, you know what I mean? The whole
All of
thing.
it.
Yeah, he's eating pizza at midnight. I don't. So, so of course, like, I wanted to know. I want to know, like, what is the legacy here? Who are the black people that came before? What's the deal on the black people that are here now? And so, of course, you having just left, he mentioned you. He
Yeah.
mentioned like you and Regina and Edward O'Blennis and like Harvey Gardner Moore, all these, I'm just name
Yeah.
dropping. You know what I mean? So I did. I heard, I definitely heard about you.
Hmm. Man, you're taking me back with those names.
I know,
Regina's been on
right?
the show 3 times. So
3 times.
yeah, and I just talked to Edward Oblenis a
Oh
couple
yeah.
couple months ago. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but you described your time at Yale as you said it was one of the roughest but most important times of your life. And
Yeah.
why was it so complex for you?
Ah. Couple things. I'd always heard of like, be careful, New Haven's bad city. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. It's, watch your back.
Yep.
Never been. When I showed up and I walked around New Haven, I was like, oh, it's not necessarily a bad city. It's a black
It's a
city.
black city.
Do you
Yes.
know what I mean? And I was
Yes.
like, oh. And then I remember there was a strike that was going on. And so, the workers, I remember them being lined up one day outside of York Street,
Mhm.
where the main offices are. And vast majority, if not 100%, black and brown. And
Yep.
so for us black and brown students to have to physically cross that line
Ooh.
was something that I don't know if the administration took into account.
Mm.
I remember getting emails about like, yeah, the school might be on strike, the workers might be on strike, but we're not, so go to class. So things like that, I felt that it was some blind spots. This it's interesting thinking about where the program is now versus where it was back then. Of course, like the institution bears some responsibility for that, but that was just like in general. Like there just wasn't the vocabulary for it to really deal with a lot of what was brought to the forefront in 2020, and that is the need of not just the inclusion of our faces and bodies, but like seeing us
Yeah.
and taking us into account. And then for me personally, that was happening at the time. I'm biracial. My mother is British and white. My dad is African American. And so, when we moved to the States, living in Hawaii, it's like,
Are
okay,
you
so it's
Barack
like,
Obama?
yeah, it feels like I did not go to Punahou. I begged. I wanted to go to like one of those like fancy like private schools.
Yeah.
But my folks were like, nah, nah, nah. There's a perfectly good one that you can go to. And the bus will take you right there. So, but it was, I mean, talk about, I was like, black kid with this British accent. Like black kids didn't know what to do with me. White kids didn't know, like never seen anybody that looked and sounded like me. I didn't know what was going on. And so just within the confines of my home, the duality, the racial duality of me, I was very comfortable with. My dad is from Florida, Southern Florida. My mother is from farm country in the middle of England, which is,
Yeah.
where me and my sisters were born. And so we're just a really kind of funky family. We kind of embraced both. But then socially, in a larger context, when I would go out into the world and leave that safety of home, I just didn't know where to belong, where I fit in. And so at the time I arrived at Yale, I was as pro-black as they came. Like I wore baggy jeans, Timberlands every day, FUBU clothing, just,
You're aging yourself by
I
your
know, I
references.
know, I know.
Boo boo. Come on now.
But that was me. And so I was just coming into that kind of understanding of myself
Yeah.
with the limitations of being seen within the institution, right? So I was like, oh, what have I got myself into? Like, do I belong here? And then just the nature of the way that theater education and work is, it's an incredibly personal thing. And so you're bearing your soul, parts of yourself in front of your classmates, and you're being critiqued in a way that's a lot different, feels a lot different than taking a test and like, oh, I got a B plus on it because I got that answer wrong and that answer wrong.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for somebody like me to take. But to like give a stab, a go through at a scene, and then to be like critiqued in front of the class, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, there's nowhere to hide. I hate this. And so I was gonna go. I was ready to bounce. I wanted out of there. I was gonna do the first semester and then I was just gonna go on to do something else in my life. But thank gosh. My dear friend Tijuana, who was the same friend that told me to audition for and read with me for and just like that. She told me we were at a party and I told her, I was like, look, I want to tell you first, I'm gonna go. This isn't for me. And she gave me such an empowering talking to at this party that it convinced me to stay. And it was tough sledding for sure in the beginning, but then I found my footing and I just started to shed a lot of that fear and ego. Learned how to take a note, you know, and not take it as a personal slight. Focus on the work. Don't put myself before the work, before the task. I hate using that phrase, like the work, you know what I mean? Whatever, but like, you
But
know what I mean? But it's the work.
I mean, that's what it is.
There is no other phrase really. Like
There's no other phrase. It's the work.
yeah, it was tough in the beginning, but man, those are some of the best years of my life and lifelong friends. So much so that like I chose to go into business with like 4 of them.
How does your biracial status impact how you view the world?
Mm. Oh. It's really interesting. I'm pausing because I've gone through different stages of this, right? But where I am today, I feel that there's a lot of things people assume that I don't know because of how I look.
Yeah.
Like, but things that I know because I am half white and I know a lot of, random facts and singers and entertainers and had a lot of experiences that other people wouldn't assume that I would have because I'm not the fairest mixed race person that you'll find. And so they don't know that. They don't assume that I am. Again, I'm pausing because I'm like, how to talk about this with the reckoning, right? That happened. That's in the summer of 2020. It didn't occur to me that like that same nationwide conversation would have to happen also within my own house, within my family. Because you're dealing with multiple generations, right? You've got my mother, and then we've got like my 2 nieces now, with the youngest of which is 22. So, no one's a child anymore, but their experience is very different
Very.
from my mother's. And the sense of activism, the sense of injustice, they're so dead set on what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's led to some kind of uncomfortable conversations. And I have to keep explaining to my nieces, I'm like, you have to realize that your grandmother, my mom, was raising, because my dad was military. So there'd be times that he was stationed in Korea. My mom was like, we are not moving to Korea. We'll see you when you get back. He was stationed in Nebraska, and my mom's like, we're not going, we'll see. When my dad would come back, as often as he could. But for a long time, she was a single white woman with 4 Black kids in England in the 70s. There was a lot of ignorance, a lot of prejudice, a lot of racism in England during that time. So I have to keep reminding them, like, to say things that insinuate that your grandma is blind to certain things, or is, you've got to give context to where she's coming from. And so I think for me, being biracial, it does help me to provide some sort of context for things, because I do kind of live at the nexus of that. But
Mhm.
um, it's what's interesting. Maybe things have changed now, but I felt that like when I was their age, being mixed with really wasn't, you kind of had to choose. Like you, like society views me,
Yeah.
I'm a black man. I just was talking to my sister about something. I was in college, and I referred to myself. I was like, because being a black man, da 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 da. My mother was like, but you're also part of.
Mhm.
I'm in you as well. And
Wow.
it was just like, yeah, like of course, but like the world sees me as this, and unless I wear a sign around my neck that goes, "Yo, my mom is white," like, that they see me how they see me, and so I'm very culturally. I feel that like I feel really blessed because there's certain things about me that are very English, and there are things about me that are very Black American, that are just Black,
Yeah.
and I feel at home now in embracing both, not having to feel that like I have to hide that part of myself. I was not prepared for that. I was not prepared for having to have those types of conversations within our own household with respect to my own mother, who um in every way that she has lived her life has been
Mhm.
proud of us. I remember going out to eat at restaurants, and us getting stares, and all the things that she had to go through, all the names that I'm sure that she was called that she would never ever tell me. I'm sure my
Mhm.
mother went through hell, was called all sorts of things, because I also did not grow up in a, I grew up in the British equivalent of what the projects would be in the PJs. They just, it's just set up a little differently. Like
Yeah.
but it's the projects. It's lower income. It's, there's just a lot to deal with
Mhm.
on a daily in your daily existence. So it's been a journey for me. There's been times where I grappled with it. I had a friend once that called me, and she was in a relationship. She was white, and her boyfriend was Black, and they were contemplating getting married, and in a very real thing, moment. She called me and was like, "I'm gonna be the mother to biracial children. Like, is there anything I should know? What can you tell me?" And I remember telling her, I was like, "I don't want to scare you, but like it's not been the easiest of roads at every step of the way for me. It's been bumpy, and just as well with humans, we go through different stages in our lives, and it's a journey. Hopefully that's a lot different today for kids at that age, because of, as we talked about before, we are browning. Being mixed is more commonplace
It's
today than
not
it used.
so unusual anymore.
Exactly, yeah. It does help me. I would say the biggest thing, it helps me to provide context, but
Mhm.
you know, and that's both offensively and defensively, if you get my meaning.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's so deep what you just said.
yeah, no, but I love it. I love being mixed now. I love having that weird, peculiar thing. Like when my friends come over and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bake for you, and I'm making them a Victoria sponge cake, and they're like, what the hell is this? I'm like, it's one of the most classic British desserts that you can make. I'm introducing them to Marmite. I'm introducing them to like
Mm.
hobnobs, and British chocolate, which is the best chocolate on the planet. Sorry, Belgium. Like it just,
Oh, the Switzerland people might
oh, the
disagree.
Swiss. Yeah, well,
The
yeah,
Swiss will
yeah,
have a different opinion,
they
perhaps.
do, and then the Swiss have good chocolate too. It's just,
Yes.
I'm just saying I prefer it to
Snickers.
Hershey. Yeah, do you know what I
Or
mean?
I
Like
should
I'm
say
just,
this. Yeah.
But it is. It's great, and I love that. I love that. I love that about me. Something I had no control. I can take credit for it, but I had no no say in the matter.
I'm sitting here talking to you, and I wonder, as we're talking, it kind of came up for me. Are you proud of everything that you have accomplished?
Oh man. Ooh, you not gonna cry. A very bad habit that I have is not doing that.
Mm,
Is not thing that I struggle with a lot is wanting more of being feeling unfulfilled because you know I want something that I haven't had yet. And I very rarely take stock in what I have. And it's something about it's just something that I'm working on. I'm much more comfortable like when I'm just kind of sitting to myself and living, I can live in my head. I'm like I can stare out of a window just for hours and just thinking. I'm very I spend most of that time either in the past or in the future,
mm,
but I don't spend a lot of time in the present. I would be lying to you if I could say why that is. So when you ask that question, it's like my bugaboo because I haven't historically been very good with being here, taking stock of what I have. It's like a constant struggle of like, oh man, remember that time it was so much better back then, or
mm.
I want this so that in the future, this. But if I do take a step back, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I've so far I've done I've had amazing opportunities to work with artists that I mean, some that are very well known and some that aren't well known, but are like, as you know, you can go to, I always tell people, it doesn't matter where you live, please go to the theater because yeah, there's a lot of actors in New York and LA, but some of the finest actors that you'll find might be at the Pittsburgh Public, might be at the Goodman in Chicago,
Alley
might
Theater.
be right, yeah, might be at Seattle Rep, might you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I've really been blessed to work with people. I mean, early no, when you asked about one of the things that's helped when working with like big people I've been watching for years is being thrown in the deep end. Like I did this crazy production of Othello with Philip Seymour Hoffman, you know, God rest his soul, and Jessica Chastain, and so you have experiences like that. You have enough experiences like that, and you just realize that like we are all the same. We really are. Like I like when my sister sometimes will ask me about like, oh, what is it like, you know, meeting Billy Porter or something, you know, whatever. And I always go like, well, like we all do the same. Like you know what Billy Porter's gonna do tonight? He's gonna eat dinner. You know, might,
All of
you
it.
know, yeah, like we just happen to be in a career that is just incredibly front facing. But at the end of the day, they all do the same thing. We're still bound by the same physical limitations
Yeah.
of being human. When forced to, when asked to, yeah, I take stock and I'm proud of the things that I've accomplished. Sometimes I just have to be reminded of that constantly, actually.
So this is the third season of this show, and I'm very interested in this idea of legacy and what we leave behind. And I wonder for you, what do you think your legacy is or will be?
Mm. I want my legacy. I think Chancellor, I think about this letter I got. I was up in Boston, did a production of Raisin in the Sun. And one of my heroes is Sidney Poitier.
Mm.
He is one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing. A Patch of Blue, To Sir with Love, this gorgeous man, so eloquent. It's just the way he moves his body. I just was transfixed. I idolized him.
Yeah.
So getting to play the role that he gave birth to,
Did
Walter
it?
Lee, I got a letter from a patron in my mailbox, and it was a woman, and she said, I had the absolute pleasure of watching Sidney Poitier do this role in its original incarnation. And please know that you have done this role justice and much more. I still have that letter, and I think about, I don't know how old that woman was, but if I want my legacy to be however many people's lives that I can touch with whatever they've seen of what I've done. It could be that Burger King commercial I did, or it could be Raisin in the Sun, or it could be Shy Baldwin, or what have you. Like those messages that I get from people that are like, thank you for that. Like I saw myself in that, in what you did, or your performance made me feel this. We truly are beyond lucky if we can have that type of profound impact on just one person.
Mm.
And so for me, I want my legacy to be for people that for whatever it is that I do, whether they see themselves in me or the character that I play or what I stand for as an artist or human being, if that affects their lives and propels them to do something great in their lives, I honestly cannot think of a better way
Mm.
to leave the planet than to have that kind of impact on another human being. And I think we take that for granted a lot. It's impossible for us to know on any given night, whether in the theater or anything you do on TV, like who's seeing your work. Can you only hope that, you do a good job? But I think that what we forget sometimes is that that thing that you've done could possibly have the opportunity to save someone's life, or put a smile on their face, or like make them have a fond remembrance of somebody that they've forgotten in their lives. So for me, that is what I want my legacy to be, is to be able to say that like I made that person's life that much better or that much meaningful, because a lot of us don't, like in other professions, we don't necessarily get to do that, or we're just, or we don't get to know that we've done that. And so that's what I want to, that's what I want to leave,
Mm.
um, is to hopefully make a positive impact and change somebody's life for the better.
Yeah, I'm sure you will and do. I'm sure you do.
Thank you.
LeRoy, thank you so much for sitting with me today.
Oh, thank you. This is great, Pat. This is you know what you're doing.
I've done
You
a
know,
few. Done a few.
this has been a joy.
Thank
This has been an absolute joy for me.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And to those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. We all will leave a legacy. Choose and live wisely. Bye, everyone. And thank you, LeRoy.
Thank you, man. My pleasure.